Noelle is a weak over-glorified cheerleader who couldn't win a slap fight with a toddler but has a mind sharp enough to outplay El Loliot. After being kicked out by his comrades, he creates the greatest team of warriors to get his revenge and rise to become the most notorious talker. This Captain Avenger is also quite lucky to have an insta-baddie who seriously wants to clap him by all means possible. And it all begins. In a world where mana gathers in the atmosphere, a critical mass forms, called the Abyss. This opens a gate connecting the human world to the demon realm of the Void. The deeper this connection grows, the more fearsome the beasts that come out. In a small town, the Abyss reaches a depth rating of 12, strong enough to summon beast lords, proving to be more ferocious than Frieza. As the town faces this looming threat, Noelle stands with his grandpa Brandon, who is geared up and ready to kick some butt even though he is rusty. Yet this femboy worries, but his old man urges him to stop acting like a little bitch.
Bro, this is me for real, dude!
Meanwhile, the beasts continue to feast on the humans, and Grandpa tells Noelle that he is safer in the bunker, insisting he will hold off the demons until help from the capital arrives. But the zesty boy protests, too familiar with this same plot, which leads to permanently losing screen time, and tells his grandpa that it is a bad idea to fight alone. Unwavering, the old fart reminds him that he is the feared Overdeath, the big daddy of the devil. He tells his grandson not to worry and vows to keep him safe, but little Winnie whines, telling his old pops to come back inside. Outside on the battlefield, the battle rages on, and Brandon is low-key hoping that his grandson doesn't end up receiving backshots from other dudes.
Oh my god, it nutted on me.
He clears the fuming fire with his big axe, dashing forward and facing the monsters head-on. The battle continues while Noelle can only pee his pants, hoping that his old pops is alright. After hearing an explosion, Femboy's heart rises like Bitcoin. Shortly afterwards, Noelle heads out to look for his old man, spotting only monsters his granddad defeated. Suddenly, he screams like a mouse caught in a trap.
I'm only gonna say this one more time, sir. Calm down.
After finding his grandpa lying on the ground like a stoned stripper, his grandfather bags a win, but at the cost of ending his belly-bumping days. Reflecting on the Seeker's life arc, always overshadowed by Attack on Titan level demise, the old fart tells his grandson that this is always the final destination for Seekers. In the light of recent events, he asks the boy and his ponytail if this perilous path is one worth following. At that moment, the sun rises and Noelle tells his old man that he is going to become a Seeker. Proud with his decision, the femboy makes a promise to become a Seeker who never accepts defeat before his granddad goes to meet the big man upstairs. Noelle does what he's best at, bawling his eyes out like a little girl. He remembers that his grandpa in his prime clapped Cositus the Silver, a beast from an abyssal depth of 13, gaining the name Overdeath, the Gojo of Seekers. 2 years later, Birdbrain keeps his promise, becoming a Seeker in the C-rank party Blue Beyond, alongside Lloyd the Swordsman, Walter the Warrior, and Tanya the Healer. Despite his role as a talker, the weakest support class that is clowned for its lack of combat ability, he is the Lelouch of their group. During a mission against some monsters, he commands Lloyd and Walter to intercept the enemy while Tanya provides support, blinding the monster in front of her. With the help of Wartface, they are able to violate the monsters with ease, proving Noelle isn't all trash. He explains that the lesser vampires are inferior subspecies, incapable of using magic skills, but their queen can reproduce them infinitely. On the other hand, the musclehead, looking for more of a challenge, asks Noelle about the queen. Low-budget Lelouch replies that Walter should not look down on the lesser vampires because they can rip an ox apart with their bare hands. Soon after, a monster tries to attack Noelle, but Tanya saves him. She states that the lesser vampires will recover unless their head is chopped off, and Blondie starts to act like she's on a heater. Shortly afterwards, they move on ahead, and Walter tries to understand why they didn't just head straight to the queen, since the lesser vampires depend on her. He smirks, thinking this is his big brain moment, but the party pooper tells him that taking down the small fries first makes the quest easier. However, Walter's way is a one-way ticket to the afterlife. The sore loser mocks the pretty boy, stating that he can't go against him because Noelle is their strategist, and his teammates start to feel cringe. He continues, disclosing that the only reason they can attempt a B-rank quest when they are C-rank is because of Noelle's buff and Master Riz. This makes Noelle remember his trash skill, Talker, that makes him a low-budget talk no jutsu user, invoking words with buff effects to increase the strength of the party, though his combat abilities are below mid and depend on a party to gain screen time. This makes talkers look like clowns, and the glorified cheerleader has something to say to the moron. Moments later, our useless MC senses a monster and alerts everyone to take cover. Suddenly, a poisonous gas engulfs Trashkun and his teammates try to save him. Just then, Blondie attempts to provide support, but the Queen reminds Tanya where she belongs and plants her face on the ground. Walter goes over to stop the monster as Noelle chokes on the poisonous gas. At that moment, Walter figures out that he is useless without his master mouthpiece. Realizing they are cooked, Walter yells out to Noelle to save their butts. Suddenly, the mama's boy remembers the promise he made to his old man, and his eyes light up, preparing to aura farm some points. He decides to show the Queen how talkers fight, and with precise commands and buffs like Tactician and Battle Voice, he boosts his team's abilities by 25%, turning the tide of the battle. He commands Tanya to deploy her shields while Walter and Lloyd attack. In a flash, they begin dealing damage to the Queen, but the Sakura Pro mid notices a monster dropping in from above and rage quits the battle. However, our MC uses a mental clarity buff on Tanya to restore her will to fight. He times himself, planning to use his Glock Silver Flame to take on the small fries. While his teammates focus on the Queen, he immediately uses his Stun Howl, dropping the lesser vampires to the floor. He proceeds to use an ice bullet to freeze them, but one escapes. Left with one bullet, he uses Limit Break on Lloyd and Walter, instructing them to finish off the Queen before he kicks the bucket. Luckily, Zesty Boy escapes being sent to his maker by a lesser vampire, since the Queen is defeated by his teammates. He checks his watch, realizing they won at record time. The Blue Beyond are all aware that the lesser vampires will lose their life if the Queen dies, but they are furious Noelle had planned to go all kamikaze. At that moment, Noelle remembers when he cried like a big old wuss after finding out about his weak-ass class assignment.
Are you serious right now, bro? Like, are you serious right now?
His grandpa told him that he was basically his mom's twin, but had all the raw talent to be a seeker. With that, he promised to train him to become the strongest seeker. Back to the present. Noelle looks up to the sky, vowing to overtake his grandpa. In Etrai, the capital of the Velnant Empire, a city thriving on magical technology derived from beast research and where seekers are celebrated as heroes, Useless Kun, thinking to himself, remembers that he became a certified seeker after turning 15 and moved to Etrai to look for allies. Fresh off their mission, Blue Beyond celebrates earning 5 million, and they plan to get sober like Rick. Noticing that Wartface is looking uglier than a rhino's backload, Walter begins to wonder if he is on his period. Noelle tells him to drop it, but Musclehead figures that he is bitter because of the payment and wonders why he worships money. The pretty boy, driven by his grandfather's instructions, insists on obsessing over money to fund better equipment and climb the ranks. Regardless, Walter mocks their glorified cheerleader, sparking a heated argument. The ladyboy stands firm, refusing to be belittled, and the team's leader Lloyd diffuses the conflict, wondering why they were acting like clowns in public. Tanya begins to feel cringe, but Lloyd tells her not to since they are teammates and decides to head back. Later that day, Lloyd shares the reward, and everyone ends up with 250,000 each after expenses. Just then, Noelle asks about their party funds and Lloyd divulges that it was up to 12.8 million. Noelle's ambition burns brighter, and he proposes using the party's 12.8 million to establish a clan, offering to cover the remaining 7.2 million needed to reach the 20 million requirement. Noelle makes it known that high-paying jobs are rare, and they can't get one easily like the big clans do, from the government. Despite their C-rank status and youth, Trashkun argues that their attractiveness and potential will draw the Empire's favor, as seekers are eye candy more than warriors. Blondie hesitates, as she isn't on board with selling her body. Walter, enticed by fame and wealth, agrees with Noelle, which makes Tanya mad. Then Walter, a true simp, says that he is ready to take her side if she will be his chick, and she looks at him disgusted. Lloyd decides to defend his woman. Soon after, Useless Kun asks Lloyd what he thinks about his plan of establishing a clan. Initially skeptical, Lloyd relents after hearing his dream and seeing the inevitability of their growth. They agree to finalize plans after resting, and as Noelle departs, Tanya stops him before telling him good night like a good waifu.
What was that about?
The next morning, Walter comes running to deliver shocking news about Lloyd and Tanya betraying them, threatening Blue Beyond's future and Noelle's dream to surpass Overdeath. After receiving the letter of Lloyd and Tanya's betrayal, one glance at it and the fool can tell it is Lloyd's writing. The letter states that their leader made some bad investments that flopped harder than a mid-TikTok trend. After falling into a debt pit, Romeo and Juliet decided the only way out was to yank the 12.8 million straight from the party's funds, and hitched together without delay they dipped out of the capital. Useless Kun begins to laugh, and his brainless teammate wonders if Noel is developing some brain rot. It is low-key laughable that the goody two-shoes Lloyd just pulled an Eisen on them. But Musclehead can't find the humor. He asks where Walter found the letter, and he replies that it was in Lloyd's lodge. He had gone there regarding a job and found the letter. Also, Walter lays it out that last night at the tavern he caught wind of a bussin' new job and decided to show up early to tell Lloyd before anyone else snatched it up. Instead, he finds Lloyd's room cleaned out, and the innkeeper handing over this sus letter. With this update, Noel figures out that Lloyd left the night before around 8 p.m. just before the gates closed. Now it's 9:30 a.m. over half a day since Lloyd ghosted. They make it look like a skibbity elopement, giving them hours of head start before anyone will notice. Deducing that they went on foot, he realizes that calling an Uber could allow them to catch up to the traitors. Mosshead drags Noel, plotting to catch them, but Ladyboy with full Sigma composure points out that they aren't in a Fast and Furious movie. Soon after, he proposes to send the traitors to their graves. Also, Noel asks if the simp can fight Tanya and he starts tweaking. Moreover, even if they beat down the traitors, their chances of getting their money are slim. Still, Noel doesn't want to stack losses and promises to pay them back in folds. A few moments later, Trashkun drags Walter to the Orcs Club, the local seeker hangout, and Walter asks why he brought them there. He tells Walter to leave the thinking to him, since his IQ is in negative territory. After entering the room, Noel drops an announcement like a princess in distress, that his teammates stole their party funds, and whoever brings them back alive gets 2 million.
That's a great idea.
Walter begins squeaking in Ohio noises, but Zesty Boy explains that they can't act alone and need to get someone's help. Suddenly, Wolf from the Lightning Bite group accepts their job request. Hoping the princess isn't capping about the payment. No promises him before giving Wolf the deets that his rogue teammates left on foot just before the gates closed. After that, other seekers jump in on the job offer, but he waits for someone who has info on his teammates, low-key feeling like a fraud. Just then, a shady old geezer, looking like an NPC from a side quest no one remembers, comes over. Around the corner, in a dark alley, the old man states that he saw 2 travelers matching Lloyd and Tanya's description. With the information he has, the old hag tells them to ready the 2 million. However, Noel tells the old man he will pay half for only providing intel. The broke geezer tries to negotiate for a higher amount, but the glorified cheerleader stands by the 1 million. Moreover, Ladyboy can tell the old man is mad broke and uses it to his advantage. The old hag tells them the location where he saw low-budget Romeo and Juliet, which was at Varley Road, Southgate, heading toward Carnot Village. Noel sends Walter with the geezer's party to chase them while he handles something important. Shortly afterwards, Walter and the geezer's party gets prepared, and Walter asks if Useless Kun can fight Lloyd and Tanya. Without hesitation, Noel announces that he will not show mercy on them, stating that he doesn't trust anyone. Later, Walter can't believe that their Talkmaster General doesn't trust any of them. Noel suggests that Mr. Gorilla should stay behind, since there are no nuts in his pants.
I also have nuts.
But Walter decides to follow anyway. On the road, the old man's crew intercepts Lloyd and Tanya, and Noel pulls up like the final boss loading in. The traitors are ready to swing, but Sharp Tongue keeps the dialogue rolling by using his stun howl skill to stop them. He calls Lloyd out that there was no failed investment, only Delulu gambling habits. Cards, dice, roulette, and the man cooked himself into debt.
So, let's go gamble, huh, kid?
After catching Lloyd red-handed, he tries to gaslight them, whining that being a leader is tough. Tired of Lloyd's BS, Noel kicks him in the face and continues to stomp him. Blondie tries to stop him, but he says that he is all about gender equality and will not hesitate to whoop her butt. She tries to act innocent, but he whips out his Riz skill Confess, making her admit to gambling with Lloyd. After coming to her senses, she tells him that it is illegal to use mind control. But then Useless Kun replies that it is totally alright against a criminal. Suddenly, the old geezer tries to demand his money and gets KO'd for not being patient. Following that, he remembers when he first learned cardiac concussion, which temporarily paralyzes the heart. A few moments later, Finocchio Barzini, one of the young leaders of the Luciano mob family, also known as the Mad Clown, arrives after being called in by our Ladyboy. Noel plans to sell Lloyd and Tanya as slaves to recover some of their money, but Tanya is not down with this. The Zesty Boy tells them he can just toss them to the guards, but they will spend 10 years of hard labor in the mines with a 2% survival rate. From his perspective, finding a kind slave master is a better outcome for them. Barzini offers 6 million for the pair, saying the Holy Cross Church is about to drop a vow of poverty, so flexing big purchases will be sus. However, our femboy, being nonchalant, took the price to 11 million. Barzini begins to feel that Noelle is on crack, but Noelle keeps increasing the price. After a stare down that feels like a vibe check in hell, El Kun pitches a galaxy brain scheme to claim the slaves were sold for 30 million to inflate their market value so Barzini can flip them for 90 million later. They finally settle at 15 million, and Barzini makes sure the old geezer's party is scared into silence. Lloyd and Tanya beg, curse, and throw every insult in the book. Blondie even tries to riz Walter into saving her. However, she slays with insults, calling muscle for brains useless and nutless and a few other things you wouldn't say in front of your mom. Meanwhile, Walter eats the aura loss, scarring him forever. Noelle hands them over to Barzini, pockets the 15 million and drops the 1 mil cut on the NPC informant. The old hag can't believe how heartless Noelle is and calls him a demon. Yet Noelle just smirks, base as ever, and says he will own it. He is not just going to be a demon, he is going to be the strongest in the world. Later, Walter tells Noelle he is quitting the seeker grind and useless Kun tries to talk him out of it, but he already made up his mind. Noelle then gives Walter a parting gift, and he murmurs that Tanya actually had a crush on the walking L train. Looking back to the memories at Blue Beyond, Walter wishes their glorified cheerleader good luck. Later, Noelle stares in the distance, thinking about being below trash. On his way, he spots a snake's shed skin. Realizing they shed their skin to grow stronger, Noelle decides it is time to do the same. The next day, a baddie sees Noelle's recruitment poster and is glad she found his location. At the Orcs Club, Trash Kun is in the middle of trying to scout talent when Wolf barges in. He advises Noelle to join his party because talkers can't fight alone. Internally, Ladyboy thinks to himself that Lightning Bite has Lysia the elf archer and a few other skilled members with great potential. However, he doesn't bite. Lysia with zero filter tells Wolf he's bothering Noelle and drops the tea that the huz doesn't want him. After taking such an aura det moment, Wolf tells them they are foiling his peak negotiation skill. However, Useless Kun says that he will join Lightning Bite, but only if he is the leader. To Wolf's shock, every single member instantly agrees. Wolf wonders why, and Lysia makes a valid argument that Noelle has brains while he has none.
Okay, those are some valid arguments.
Before Wolf can keep spiraling, a baddie approaches. Everyone is shocked by her sudden appearance, and that even Lysia, an excellent tracker, didn't detect her. She introduces herself as Alma, and is there for the recruitment interview. Firstly, Noel asks for her age to know if he should keep things PG. Suddenly, Lightning Bite takes over the interview, asking a bunch of personal questions which Alma answers. She then adds that she is a C-rank scout. Thinking to himself, Mama's boy knows that scouts are solid for detecting danger in abyss exploration, wishing she showed up earlier. Later, he asks why she wants to be a seeker, and Alma drops the plot twist that she is not here for seeker glory but is interested in the grandson of Overdeath. Her grandfather had fought Overdeath and lost his gooning arm. However, she didn't come there for revenge. He apologizes for his late grandfather's actions, but she says her own grandpa passed away last month, so it was all Gucci. Then she drops another bomb that her grandfather was Alcor Judicali, which shocked everyone in the tavern. He was the head of the Society of Assassins, a legendary contract assassin. Logan, a loudmouth regular, calls Cap and says rookies shouldn't even be in their bar. Alma just calls him a gorilla, and when pushed, she absolutely violates him in a fight, flooring him before he can blink. Immediately, Noelle hires her on the spot, and her belly rumbles louder than a rhino charge. Later that evening, Alma is in bliss as she munches on a fried bun, saying it is better than anything Gordon Ramsay could do.
Okay, so what's so funny?
Trash Ken still can't believe she is Alcor's granddaughter, because it's a bold claim, but Alma states that she believed he was Overdeath's grandson, talking about how his eyes remind her of Alcor's description of Overdeath. Noel asks if she trained to be an assassin, and she replies that she did so in the mountains to ascend from scout to assassin. She met the conditions for B rank, but she never joined the society because she was now unwanted baggage. During her trial, she had fought a Temu version of Wolverine and had taken him out with ease. She was about to end him before the leader of their society stopped him. The society rejected her, not for lack of skill, but because she wasn't a good fit for the new direction of their society. Without hesitation, Alma blurts out sensitive info that the society is planning to affiliate with the Crown, switching from contract assassination to espionage. This makes Noel realize she has a loose screw upstairs to casually divulge such info and hopes he will not get offed by those assassins to be kept silent. She promises to keep him safe since she is his big sis now, and this makes Noel crash out. The next day, deep in the forest, Noel explains that talkers can't buff themselves. Talkers read the battlefield, give orders that maximize the party's capabilities, and control the flow of battle. Just then, Noel tells Tits for Brains to capture a rabbit monster under his buffs to test her adaptability. Although Alma replies that she didn't need his buff, he asks if she has the Excel skill, and Alma replies that she can go up to quintuple speed. Noel asks if she perfected the speed immediately, but she tells him that her body had to adjust to the speed. He tells her that it is the same for his buff. When Wartface hits her with Battle Voice and Tactician, Alma feels the power surging in her. He orders her to stack her Excel skills, warning that buffs require practice to master. She takes off with Quintuple Excel, turning her into the Flash. A few seconds later she is back with all 13 monster rabbits in the area, knocked out in 8.6 seconds flat. Noel's impressed because his former team needed half a month to adapt to buffs, but she nailed it instantly. She passes. And Ladyboy decides it's time to take on their first job as the new Blue Beyond. The job is from Mint's village, where he hunted monsters before. Thieves have set up nearby, and since lords are slow to act, the villagers called them. They travel by stagecoach, and Alma is initially excited, but Femboy ruins the mood with his nonsense yapping.
Shut up!
Later that evening, Alma complains of her butt being sore after some classified activities, and they stop in Eudora to find an inn. After a couple of attempts, they finally find a room. It has only one bed, so Noel insists on sleeping on the floor. But Alma assures him that nothing is going to happen, so they can sleep together. Later, Mascara Boy comes out of the bathroom and Alma gets zesty about his body, but she drops the hammer that it is unfortunate that no matter how hard he trains, he will always be trash. Noel shuts that down with a light smack and tells her to go bathe, but the words hit deeper than she knows. That night, Noel remembers crying when he was assigned as a talker, but Overdeath reassured him that even as a talker, he has dormant talent and will become a great seeker. In the morning, Noel wakes up to some hot buns all over his face, and he smacks Alma for acting like one of them thoughts.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
Moments later, they roll into Mint's village and the chief greets them warmly. It has been a year since Trashcun last visited. When the old man asks about the rest of Blue Beyond, he admits that they rage quit the team. The chief looks worried, but Ladyboy tells him not to sweat it. Later, the old geezer offers them tea, and Noel notices the midget's daughter, Chelsea. The chief apologizes for his daughter's behavior even though it's obvious she is crushing on Wartface. They start discussing the details of the job. There are about 20 thieves who have looted neighboring villages and are abducting the women. Immediately, he asks for the location of the thieves' hideout. He then states his terms: 200,000 upfront and 300,000 on completion. The chief's wife brings out the initial payment, and our useless protagonist is surprised the broke geezer got the money so easily. In the forest, Alma is mad at the old geezer for ogling at her plot, but Noel had not even noticed. Suddenly, the chief's daughter chases them down, showing him the bamboo copter he had taught her to make a year ago, which she kept as a treasure. Soon Chelsea vows to make a feast when he returns, before leaving them. With this, Alma accuses Noel of rizzing up Chelsea. However, Noel calls her Tits for Brains and she immediately pops a fuse. Later that evening, Zesty Boy scouts the thieves' base and wonders if the village chief is suffering from brain rot, when there are double the thieves he mentioned. Looking through his diddler tool, he sees Gordo the Razorblade, a B-rank scout with a 2 million bounty. One-on-one, Alma says she can off him, but with his crew things would get trickier. With that, Useless Kun decides that he will take on the small fries as usual. However, Miss Calcium Cannons feels that Noel will get his butt handed to him. Yet El Kun tells her that he has a plan. With stealth active and the thought-sharing link, Noel gives the go before using Stun Howl to paralyze the camp. Useless Kun orders Gordo's deletion and Alma hits Excel Quintuple, and a quick attack that finishes him instantly. Just then the Yap Master tells Alma to keep the small fries busy until he arrives. After having fun slashing the thieves, Noel arrives throwing flash bombs and flame bullets. Soon everything is over and Noel decides to aura farm points. Back at the village, Trashcun arrives and requests the final payment. However, the old man insists they stay for dinner. Later, Chelsea beams as she has just gotten her swordsman assessment and dreams of being a seeker like Noel. While he explains the seeker path, the broke chief and his wife act sus. Meanwhile, Chelsea vows to join Blue Beyond someday, when she gets stronger. Then comes the wine, supposedly worth 100,000 phil, saved for this moment, except Noel instantly calls Cap. He offers the drink to the old geezer, who keeps making weak excuses. However, Ladyboy is playing 4D chess while the chief is playing checkers. The chief aims to poison them to avoid paying, and loot their bodies as well. Seeing through the fraud's plan, Ladyboy mentions all his red flags. Firstly, the chief can't afford to serve a 100,000 phil bottle of wine. Secondly, it is actually a cheap-ass wine, and third, from the stench, it has been open for some time. Lastly, the chief's been radiating hostility since bringing it out. Alma glazes her full-brain Noel, but then informs the old man that scouts have resistance to poison. The chief begins to crash out, and the glorified cheerleader uses his confess skill on him. The chief confesses that he planned to have them deal with the thieves, then rob them. With that confession, the zesty protagonist pokes out the village chief's eye, traumatizing the poor daughter. Noel asks him to give up all their money for him to live, but the chief claims he is in debt to the Gambino mob family. Just then, Chelsea offers all their money to save her father's life, and Noel takes it. They leave the chief's house and Chelsea begins her villain arc. Soon after, Alma muses that seekers are pettier than expected, but Trashkun doesn't have time for her garbage. She pokes at whether he is okay disappointing Chelsea and offers him some milk to feel better, but he tells her to back off. Alma claims she will not stop teasing his pretty boy face. Suddenly, an airship flies by and he states that it is marked with Goat Dinner's symbol.
What?
A 3-star Regalia clan. Noel explains Regalia, a title from the Emperor given to 7 elite clans, ranked by stars, and airships are one of their perks. These seekers are more than strong, they are rich, experienced, and world-class. At that moment, Zesty Boy sets a goal that in a year Blue Beyond will be a part of the Regalia. The scene shifts to post-Alma's combat test, where the leader asks if she offed Alcor. She admits to it, stating that even the god of assassination was useless, once his mind went senile. After bagging a massive loss against Overdeath, Alcor became an empty shell of himself. Then came the truth that Alma isn't Alcor's granddaughter, but his daughter. She was one of many children from the women he abducted and molded to be his replacement. Most lost their lives in his Squid Game's succession plan, where she was the winner. However, the leader claimed the new society had no place for her. Simon tells her that while offing people will remain part of their work, it was now just a means to an end. After hearing that, Alma started to crash out, thinking that the 21 years of training with no friends, no joy, nothing but survival had gotten her to be dumped like trash. She demands her life back, but Simon told her to go live however she liked. But he told her she should meet the grandson of Overdeath if she was interested. Back to the present, Alma decides that she will always fight alongside him. Late at night, a sus-looking guy takes out a guard before shape-shifting into him. A while later, he meets up with another guard, interested in the prisoner within the cell behind them. The guard informs him that the prisoner is quite a big deal, and named Hugo the Puppeteer. The next morning, Zesty Boy starts his day like Aston Hall, running 2 laps around the city walls with a rucksack of rocks on his back. This has been his routine since he promised to become a seeker to his old pops. At that time, the warm, gentle old man vanished, that day to be replaced by a drill sergeant who puts him through Sigma-level training every single day. Since Noel's trash skill can't buff him, he had to train like David Goggins. Later, Frogface takes his bath, having flashbacks of the moment Alma roasted him for being trash. Just then, Alma interrupts his emo moment and comes into Noel's room. Looking around, she is impressed with his house deco, which looks demure. Without warning, she pushes Noel to the bed, ready for a round of cowgirl style.
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm!
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Wait.
Left with no option, he smacks the horny right out of her. A few moments later, Alma can't believe Trashkun didn't discriminate when whooping someone's butt, and Noel claims she had it coming. After seeing a couple pass by, arm in arm, Tits for Brains decides their outing is now officially a date. He takes her to the Appraisers Association, a guild of rare job-diagnosing gnomes who helps others rank up while they remain trash. The glorified cheerleader asks about Alma's plan since she had a rank-up mark. Alma showcases the rank-up sign on her melons and low-key wishes Noel's rank-up sign will appear on his butt. After her cringe outburst, she lets her daddy decide her rank-up class, but gets speechless when he mentions recruiting more teammates. Noelle explains that the two of them diving into an abyss will be asking for a one-way ticket to ride the L train. Also, he tells her to hold off choosing a new class until they recruit more members. Their next stop is a dwarf-run arms shop, stating that good equipment draws out the Seeker's full potential. Zesty Boy meets with the little blacksmith who is lost in the two planets before his eyes. After that, they go to a skill guide shop, where Alma's budget is 1 million. Noelle warns her not to waste it. Shortly afterwards, the Instagram baddie blows her wad on a huge teddy for her servicing needs. Oh, and also an armor-piercing skill book. Meanwhile, Alma is surprised that our worthless MC didn't buy a thing. But Elkin says he's too broke to get what he was after. At that moment, a shady person passes by and Noelle puts the sad date on pause before leaving. In a depressing alley, Wartface meets up with a mysterious guy named Loki. Runaway date boy doesn't understand why Loki brought him to a garbage dump where he belongs. Loki happens to be Noelle's hired informant, who digs up info on Hugo. Hugo is someone useless Kun plans to recruit, certain that Hugo was framed, yet Loki warns him that freeing a convict and selling ex-party members into slavery makes him worse than Diddy.
Look at this dude. Wait till you see the...
However, the diddler takes it as a compliment. Suddenly, Loki showcases his imitator skill, which lets him morph into anyone. After getting paid, Loki tips him off about a dangerous trending new drug causing violent outbursts. Trashkun figures that the Luciano family will come after the dealers, but his takes are trash. Loki informs him that a sub-family of the Luciano family sells it, led by Albert Gambino. At the same time, Alma's mouth is stuffed with meat when Lycia randomly appears.
What the hell are you doing?
Meanwhile, Noelle wanders the streets when he spots a beggar with an aura too sharp for his ragged clothes. He tosses a coin towards the beggar. Shortly afterward, the beggar tells him to take his money, mistaking him for a baddie. Ladyboy makes it clear that he has balls and refuses to reclaim the coin after a beggar touches it. Koga didn't take his words lightly, and Zesty Boy didn't hesitate to plant his face on the ground. The exchange heats fast and Koga's stance oozes of a massive aura. They square up, but a little man named Miguel interrupts, scolding Koga for disobedience. At that moment, Lycia is surprised Alma didn't rank up as they eat together. Alma tells her about the options she has, which are assassin, chaser, torturer, and bandit. But her appraiser states that she has a higher affinity for assassin and chaser. However, Lycia wonders if Noelle is out hunting for new recruits. Back in the alleyway, it turns out Miguel owns Koga while using an illegal oath of subordination ring, which grants total control over a person in a master-slave relationship. When the pretty boy questions him, Miguel brags about running an underground fighting ring for the D'Alembert family, getting caught skimming bribes, and fleeing here to restart. Also, Koga is his prized gladiator, and Noelle quickly pieces Miguel's plan together. Fight in the capital, pocket the winnings, and maybe crawl up in the local underground scene. Noelle then finally clarifies that he is a man and Miguel is shocked. But inside, he is already scheming on how to liberate Koga from this twerp. Cutting back to Alma, Lycia states that Noelle hasn't taken down the recruitment poster and figures he might have found a new member. But Alma isn't prepared to share her hubby and plans to off anyone who tries to claim her spot. Back in the slums, Miguel's swagger fades the second his mouth is filled with Noelle's gun. Instantly, the slave master begs for mercy and useless Kun tells them to dip. Internally, Noelle is disappointed that Koga is just a stray mutt begging for scraps and isn't worth recruiting in his current state. A while later, the pretty boy arrives at the date and is surprised to see Lycia. The freeloader thanks him for the food and the cheap bastard protest. Yet Lycia teases Noelle for bailing on his date without apologizing, and Alma gaslights him into paying for their meal. Lycia asks if he has found a promising recruit, suspecting that he was just out scouting. However, the ladyboy is too nonchalant for that and claims he has been digging into a dangerous new drug sweeping the city. The freeloader admits that she has heard rumors and he tells them to be vigilant. Lycia gets surprised that he cares about them, knowing that Noelle always acts like a tsundere thought. The elf princess, being more useful than the useless protagonist, resolves to bail and invites Alma to hang out as friends later. Deep in thought, Noelle realizes this drug can spell trouble, since even Lycia has heard of it. Elsewhere, Miguel's world is about to implode as he is caught by Albert Gambino, who looks like a villain straight out of Gotham. Albert laughs off the idea of handing Miguel over to the D'Alemberts. Instead, he concludes it will be more fun to skin Miguel and Koga alive and stuff their hides as a little present for the D'Alemberts. Meanwhile, Koga says GG's and can't believe his worthless life is going to end in such a way. Suddenly the chief of Mint's village hobbles in, whining about Noel robbing him and mocking the Gambino name. Albert's temper snaps and he orders Koga to cut off the chief's arm as payment. Koga hesitates until Miguel orders him to follow Albert's command. At that moment, Albert gets stoned and watches Koga use his stick to cut through the chief's flesh like it's nothing. Albert is amused by his feat, and Miguel offers Koga to Albert, which he accepts. Koga's story isn't the kind you tell with smiles. Born to a wealthy merchant and a beautiful mother in the Far East, things were looking rosy until his parents were attacked, and his mother forced into a nasty game of tag. After Koga's mom gave birth, her husband wasn't sure that child even was his. Hearing this, Koga's mom took her life before Koga was old enough to speak. A few years later, Koga tries his best to please his old man, but it was to no avail. One day, Koga woke up and found himself on a boat, realizing that he had been sold into slavery. Luckily, he didn't receive the guts treatment. Just then, Miguel bought Koga, threw him into underground arenas. He fought in the arena until pain became a myth. Wins earned him rare hollow praises, which made him happy, but freedom wasn't even a rumor in his life, just the cold, constant weight of chains. Back to the present, Koga suits up and is ready for action. Later that night, Loki invites our MC to warn him about the Gambinos being after his poor life. Soon after, Loki informs him about all the deets leading to him being targeted. But Wartface can smell a rat, and realizes that Loki has already sold him out to save his own skin. Yet this femboy worries, but his old man urges him to stop acting like a little bitch. Noel brings out his Glock and prepares to put a bullet in his head. However, he decides to let him go and promises to tear down the Gambinos himself. After Loki leaves, he takes a battle stimulant potion. In no time, Koga arrives, surprised his target is Noel. Koga tells him that he doesn't want to fight and appreciates the gesture in their last meeting. As a sign of respect between Chads, Koga announces that he is a C-rank longswordman, specializing in clean cuts. Our hopeless protagonist reciprocates and introduces himself while listing his skills. The clash intensifies as Noel fires some shots at Koga. Femboy settles on testing his Spider-Man skills while pushing back with Flame Bullet, but it has no effect on Koga. Desperate for a win, Noel uses underhanded moves, but Koga uses his Bankai-like skill, Secret Swordsmanship, Tubame Gaishi, a technique that fixes an attack in place then shatters it. Femboy's impressed, but he loses his footing and resolves to use Stun Howl. But this time it doesn't work, and he falls to his imminent doom. Immediately the loser wakes up from his slumber. Koga bags his win, it is GG's for Noel. But Koga gives him the NPC talk that he fought well, but hold this loss. However, Koga doesn't finish the loser, and Elkune gets confused since Gambino ordered his extinction. Noel, all Sigma energy, grabs Koga's sword, telling him there is nothing more valuable than his life. At this point, Koga tries to understand if the L Magnet really wants to sacrifice himself for someone below trash. Before Koga can start a redemption arc, Alma spawns in mid-flight with MC Riz, claiming she is the only one allowed to pin Noel down. Suddenly, Noel's stimulant potion begins to wear off. Nevertheless, the useless protagonist is glad he used his link skill to contact Alma earlier. Just then, Alma is ready to wrap things up, but Koga says he doesn't want to hurt a lady. Tits for Brains laughs, claiming she is stronger than him. Due to Koga's cockiness, she kicks off with Excel quintuple blitzing past Koga, who can't keep up with her speed. She launches her weapon mid-air, but Koga steals Byakuya's Bankai and uses it to defend himself. After seeing such moves, Ladyboy acknowledges that he is a fraud. At that moment, Koga activates Calm and Serene, sharpening his senses with his eyes closed. Alma's attacks aren't landing while Bro is running on full aura maxing. Just then, Useless Kun realizes that he used this same skill against his flashbang attack. After watching them fight, Noel figures out how trashy he truly is. With that, he finds a new goal, which is to control the strongest, to be the strongest. The battle goes on for a while, so they decide to double down. Alma activates her blood poison and Koga lines up his insta-delete EAE flash. Just before the move lands, Noel tells them to stop and orders a retreat, but leaves Koga with a message to deliver to Gambino. The next day, Gambino gives Koga a present, which is Miguel's head. Also, he tells Koga not to mess up, or his head is next. Before leaving, Koga relays Frogface's message. My motto is to repay friend and foe alike 1,000-fold. I am going to take out the Gambino family. If you don't want that, quit being a chicken and come for my head yourself. Albert hears this, and his ego goes into Ohio meltdown mode. He orders his men to hunt Noel down so they can chop him into pieces. Outside Albert's office, his right-hand man Laios tells Koga what he did was unnecessary. But Koga starts glazing Ladyboy and Laios can't believe how deep Koga is in Noel's pants. Later that day, the glorified cheerleader is chilling in a Seeker bar when Albert barges in with an A-rank squad and some B-tier guards. Albert sits next to the loser and drinks his wine. Immediately, Albert roasts the wine, calling it unfit for animals. Regardless, Noel claps back that Albert's face is ruining his meal. Hearing that, Albert threatens to rip Noel's mouth so he can't eat again. But Trashcan added that Albert can only bark because of the men behind him. This makes Albert furious and he tries to stab Wartface, but Simon steps in, reminding the redhead that violence is banned there. The ugly redhead becomes more enraged and orders his men to off everyone, but Laios makes it known to him that they are out on thin ice, so offing Seekers in public will cause a lot of problems for them. Hearing that makes Albert decide to take this L and bounce it. Noel, with his smug look, tells Albert the wine he just drank is poisoned. Albert calls Cap and asks how Zesty Boy knew he would drink it. But Noel admits it was a gamble. If Albert drinks it, it is a win, and if he doesn't, there isn't any loss. Outside the Seeker's tavern, Albert instantly panics, begging for a doctor. However, Laios calls Noel's bluff and tells him to leave the capital or they will end him. He agrees, saying his Seeker career is over. After leaving the tavern, Alma is impressed that everything went exactly as Noel said it would, but he tells her it is too early to celebrate. Soon after, Wartface tells her that he wants to look into something. Meanwhile, Alma decides to train so she can whoop Koga's butt in their next meeting. With that, they conclude to meet in a week's time. A week later, Albert can't believe that Trashcan would come back and plans to savor deleting him. He orders his crew to take out Noel, but they don't budge. Back in the past, Albert's gang had reached their breaking point and were done obeying orders after doing awful things to the weak. They had joined for the old boss's immaculate riz, not to farm XP off the weak. That was when Frogface strolled in, and after seeing Leo's teammate holding a bamboo copter, he knew Chelsea's villain arc had ended. After a moment of silence, he hands over Albert's birth certificate. A while back, Loki informed Noel that Albert isn't the real bastard of the boss. The boss and Albert's mom had an affair. But with the timing, there was no chance Albert was the boss's son. The old boss knew this, but still helped Albert's mom because he was a simp. He asked Loki to find the cause of the old boss's demise. Back to the present, Ladyboy accuses Albert of poisoning the old boss, saying the doctor at the deathbed confirmed it after he used his talk no jutsu skill on him. Also, Noel reminds everyone how Albert panicked at the bar when he heard poison, basically confessing he knows exactly how it goes down. Albert's crew instantly revokes his Sigma status, telling him they can't prop up someone they don't respect or owe anything to. Nevertheless, due to their last boss's request, they give Albert one last chance, a duel with Noel, and if he wins they will recognize him as their boss. Albert blatantly refuses, but they offer to let him pick a stand-in, and still he declines. Just when the tension's at max, Pinocchio, dressed to serve drama, announces that he is there to witness the duel. Noel called in Pinocchio. Aware that Albert's drug mess is already making the streets sus, Pinocchio has been waiting for a chance to crush him for tarnishing the Gambino name. Also, if the glorified cheerleader wins the duel, he gets a whooping 50 million, so it is a checkmate for Noel either way. Albert tries to twist the plot, calling the mad clown the mastermind, but he admits that Noel is the big brain. Albert is still in denial, but Pinocchio tells him to hurry since he has a tight schedule. The loser hesitates to duel, but Pinocchio cuts him off with a straight-up vibe check to show more resolve as part of the Gambino family. Finally, Albert caves in, hoping if he wins they will acknowledge him as the boss. On the other hand, Pinocchio agrees that he will smoothen things over with the Dawn about the Seeker Bar incident. Albert instantly picks Koga as his stand-in, exactly who Femboy predicted he would choose. And Albert's choice is obvious because Koga is bound by a contract of servitude, which means he can't betray the redhead, unlike the rest who now have a grudge against him. At that moment, Alma is glad she can finish Koga, but Noel steps forward telling her to back off. Alma begins to crash out, sure Alkan will bag a major loss. After taking a stimulant potion, Trashcan is confident he will not be called a fraud. Koga notices that Noel's eyes are bussin' with that unshakable conviction that says, I am him, and Koga feels the same way too. He admits he is looking forward to it, even if it's just for the rematch. They both promise to go all out this time, and declare that the third time's a charm. Pinocchio then starts the duel. Zesty Boy opens with an ice bullet and Koga uses his crazy cherry blossoms to block it. Finocchio cannot see anything while Alma acts like she is in heat. Meanwhile, Albert's goons have doubts about Noel winning, but Laios trusts him. Just then Koga decides to use his IPA flash stance and Wartface knows he is cooked if he uses it. However, the professional loser has seeds already planted in Koga's mind. Noem throws his Glock away claiming it's out of bullets and baits the slave boy with a random useless tip about orange peels and grease stains, just enough to delay Koga's reaction. Instantly Birdbrain dashes forward and he's insane enough to hold Koga's blade in place with muscle alone. Koga tries to slice Noel but cuts through his ice bullets freezing him in place. With that Noel drops the Roaring Thunder and KOs Koga. After bagging his L, Koga remembers that he had been unwanted since birth, too weak to do anything without orders, even as a gladiator. Fighting made him stronger, but he could never be like Eren Jaeger. Back to the present, Finocchio declares Noel the winner. Just then Koga acknowledges that he respects Noel's strength, especially as a talker, wishing he was like him, strong enough to fight for freedom. While Lelkun retains his top G status and tells Laios he doesn't need any favors after he offers. Later, Alma tends to Noel's injury, wondering if he had any brain cells for using the Roaring Thunder on a frontliner. Also she reminds him that his job is giving orders and hers is fighting. He promises not to take her role again, swearing on his grandpa. Alma keeps calling herself Big Sis, and her hubby just sighs. Deep down, Noel is glad the Gambinos are done, hoping that Chelsea can rest in peace. Suddenly, Finocchio requests to speak with him privately. After Alma leaves the room, he offers Trashkun a spot in his family, even a leadership role with the Gambinos. Femboy sees it as a joke because he is very young, but Finocchio tells him that age doesn't matter. Still, Wartface declines the offer. At that moment, Finocchio shows his card, that he is an A-rank scout class Punisher with a unique skill called Judgment. It activates if you refuse him twice, allowing him to pull Noel's heart from his chest. Fartface is still alive because it's linked to him, but if Finocchio crushes it or moves too far away, he is chopped. Finocchio admits that Noel is too skilled and will cause trouble for the Luciano family, so maybe she should end him now. However, he gives Zesty Boy his last chance. Noel doubles down, telling him to do his worst, since it proves Finocchio doesn't have nuts. The mad clown cracks up and says he was joking. But as Finocchio leaves, he advises him to reach the top or face the consequences. Back outside, Albert is in full panic mode and begs Finocchio to spare him. The clown calls him trash without pride, but informs him that he will become her pigpen pet. He will cut off his hands and feet so he can walk like the pigs and hopes they will like their new lover. The next morning, Koga is freed from his servitude and Noel tells him he doesn't need a starved dog but a fierce wolf. Koga, unsure what to do with freedom, says he wants to see the sharp-tongued bastard achieve his dream. He begs Ladyboy to join Blue Beyond and his request is accepted. On their next mission, Noel's commanding, Koga's charging, and Alma's full armor piercing allows them to wipe out a horde of goblins. Later, Alma and Koga argue about the spoils of battle, but Femboy scolds them and they get the message. Soon after, Useless Kun declares the fight proves they have enough power to form a clan, but Koga asks if a clan is better than a party, and Noel explains it's state-recognized with full mission rewards and no middlemen. The team is glad to hear this and notices a rank up on Noel's hand. Finally, Noel can rank up to B rank, another step toward his goal of leading the strongest members, creating the most powerful clan and reaching the pinnacle of regalia, the 7-star. Before all this, Noel is handling business at a winery he owned. Plans are being laid with the staff when an inspector with the Seeker Guild named Harold Jenkins drops in. The old geezer enjoys some wine and compliments Zesty Boy's vintage. Noel states that this was all possible because of a hefty inheritance. Harold compliments Noel for having the talent to manage people and run a successful business. However, Trashkun tells the inspector he will soon leave things in his workers' capable hands. He asks what brought the inspector to his house when he had already given all the information about the incident back in his hometown. Harold reaches into his pocket and brings out a recent image of the same demon lord that destroyed Noel's homeland. Wartface's nonchalant expression surprises Harold, but Femboy had a feeling the monster was still alive. During the incident in his hometown, he didn't find the lord's body, nor his old man's axe. Noel asks if the lord had since been defeated. Harold states that a major clan tried to take it down, but got yeeted to the afterlife. Shortly afterwards they had sent the Supreme Dragon clan, but the Lord went back to the void. Normally beasts attack humans based on instinct, but this lord seemed to be acting on its own will. Now the lord has a possibility of attaining the valiant status. This is a status for a group of powerful lords with strength enough to cause an extinction event. Last time one showed up, Cocytus the Silverfish erased 3 nations like he was swiping left on Tinder. Overdeath's crew and Bloodsword Federation was the first to actually win against one. However, Harold feels that if the Beast Lord truly is a valiant, humanity is cooked, but this just amuses Noel. Harold realizes that Ladyboy has the same fire in his eyes like his granddad. Noel also added that he was in charge of Bloodsword Federation and was close to Overwatch. The old man tells him he will be eligible for the Seeker exams next year and decides to leave. Soon after, Noel tells him not to forget his face, since he will become the strongest Seeker. Later, the old geezer stalks Noel from afar, reacting the same way Hisoka does to Gon. Back in the present, Koga begins to panic before the clan eligibility interview, and Alma teases him, which causes the loyal dog to crash out. Suddenly they notice a strong aura and immediately put on their guard, but the old geezer enters the room and tells them to chill. The interview starts and everything seems in order, but they lack achievements. Noel replies that he and Alma have ranked up to B rank, while Koga is C rank. Harold concludes the interview and calmly rejects their application. At the same time, the submaster of 1-star Supreme Dragon Zeke takes out a lord with a depth rating of 12 like it was just another Tuesday. During the interview, Harold tells them they are looking for stronger seekers because a colossal mana was detected west of the Empire. It is reaching a critical level and will likely erupt in a year. The moment it erupts, it will spawn a beast lord with the depth rating Valiant of 13 will manifest. Alma asks if they have a chance, but Harold informs them that they need the best seeker in the Empire to take part. Harold concludes that they don't have time to train newbies like them and tells them to leave. Noel admits they didn't meet the standard yet, before leaving the room. However, deep down, Harold has faith in the ladyboy. Later that evening, Koga wonders why Noel took the rejection so well, but Wardface reframes it as an opportunity to shoot up the ladder. Just then, Zesty Boy explains that Valiants aren't just a danger to humanity, but also a jackpot loot box for human civilization. Cocytus, for example, provided the Empire with purified water tech, boosted living standards and made Seekers instant heroes. Suddenly Noel wants to reach the regalia in half a year, and the others call capping. Regardless, Trashcun promises to produce results in just a few days, so they can get called up for the valiant fight and write their names into history. Noel is already making a script for their whack movie, stating that they need clout and something dramatic. Useless Kuhn wants it to slap so hard the public can't look away, and Noel's gonna cook it up himself. Later at the Appraisal Guild, Noel upgrades to Strategist, a B-rank talker specialty that supercharges battle analysis. Now he can predict fights like he has the Sharingan. Outside on the street, a lot of baddies are dripping over Zeke. But later, Noel and Zeke greet each other. Deep in thought, Zesty Boy is aware of only 3 EX rank seekers: the Master of Pandemonium, Leo, the Master of Supreme Dragon, Victor and Zeke. Zeke asks if he is the grandson of Overdeath, and Noel admits that he is. Suddenly the pretty boy acts like a wimp, but the Rizlord doesn't buy it. Then Noel gets serious and straight up asks why Zeke is beating around the bush when he intends to recruit him. But the loser declines his invitation, so Zeke decides to insist. Frogface then states that he will only join the strongest between Leo and Zeke. However, Leo and Zeke have never clashed before, since only one of them will come out alive. With that, Noel dips and tells Zeke to talk to him when he has the receipts to prove he is the strongest. Back on the streets, some bot calls Zeke the second best seeker in Etri, and he starts tweaking. Zeke approaches them questioning why he sits at number 2 and they believe Leo is number 1. Due to their weak justifications, he yeets them from the field. Meanwhile, Noel eavesdrops on their conversation and realizes that they need to form a clan quickly. Deep within the forest, Alma and Lycia spa train together, but Tits for Brains loses to her. Later, the Elf Jr. tells Alma that she isn't suited to fight on the rear line. With her assessment, Noel's waifu figures that assassin is the right specialization for her. At that moment, Lycia's old friend Ophelia pops up, and they greet each other. Lycia introduces Alma to her, a winged knight party member from her village. Soon, Ophelia's party members arrive: Keem the Lancer, Vaclav the Summoner, and Leon the Leader. The Elf Senior tells Alma to talk to them if she needs anything. However, she warns the plot goddess to watch out for Noel, calling him a mob-dealing slave trader with nothing but bad news around him. Leon shuts her down, telling her not to judge people she doesn't know and never feed rookies gossip as fact. As the winged knight leaves, Lycia apologizes for the trash talk from Ophelia, but Alma doesn't mind since most of it was spot on. Later that night, back in planning mode, Noel's going through lists of top B-rank parties. One catches his eye, the winged knight party that is skilled, trustworthy, and somehow not in a clan yet. The leader Leon is practically a knight in shining armor, and Loki notes how everyone loves a clean-cut hero. At the same time, Leon's party is celebrating a job well done, toasting victories and praising each other's teamwork. The useless protagonist watches from the shadows, noting that everyone has a weakness. Not even Zeke is an exception, and when you strike the weak point, the smile fades and the cracks show. Just then, Noel smirks, claiming he isn't a goody two-shoes, and sets his eyes on the winged knight party. Zesty Boy is already scheming a way to reach the top. In the prison cell, Hugo has a nightmare, but wakes up to a guard telling him that he has a visitor. On meeting his visitor, Hugo isn't surprised to see Noel again. Meanwhile, Zesty Boy wonders why he looks like he is auditioning for the after version of My 600-Pound Life. However, the prisoner reminds him that they aren't dating, but Noel only cares about getting Hugo out, so he can join his party. Deep in thought, Trashcun knows Hugo awaits execution for murders that shrouded Entree in fear. Still, Hugo was once considered a seeker prodigy with the unique puppeteer class. He commanded puppet armies in every fight and claimed victory as an independent seeker. Unfortunately, he retired at the peak of his game to make dolls. After making Elon Musk money from it, Hugo nuked his own career with the murder case. Now he is awaiting execution, still nonchalant in personality and mind. At that moment, Hugo tells Noel that he is wasting his time. Yet Useless Kun tells him there are ways to avoid the execution. Meanwhile, the convict is unfazed, since he can see the cap. Suddenly, Noel orders the guard to bring a cup of tea, and tells the guard to leave. With that, Hugo deduces that the glorified cheerleader paid off the guard, but in reality, the mascara boy had blackmailed them. Still, Wartface has the guards in the palm of his hand, and tells Hugo that preparations for his release are nearly complete. Noel wonders why he isn't happy with the news, but Hugo says that he will not join his party either way. Soon after, the starving convict tells our useless protagonist that he hates Seekers because they are violent and act cocky. However, he sees Noel to be worse because he is like a snake, merciless, cunning, and able to swallow people whole. Wartface takes that as a compliment, admitting it inspired his clan name. Although Hugo makes it clear that he isn't giving a compliment, Wartface says he will be back and promises that Hugo will join his party. Later that night, the Yap Machine and his teammates arrive at Rockbird Beak. Everyone stares at them like it's Beyoncé entering the room. Edgar approaches them and calls Noel a lady because he has no face scars. Noel hits back that if scars make a man, Blockhead is too desperate to be one. Musclehead gets mad and is ready to fight until Noel casually drops info about his unborn child's name choices. Clearly a violation. He warns that fighting him means risking everything. At that point, Edgar creeps out and takes his loss. They order their meal and Noel is glad his whole reason for being there has arrived. Just then, Ophelia is surprised to see Alma. Noel uses Link to ask his blonde assassin how she knows Ophelia. She tells him it was from Lycia, warning him that the chick hates his guts. Alma greets Ophelia and Noel introduces himself. She wears a disgusted look and Ladyboy wonders if she is beefing with him. The Elf Queen can't believe that Noel sold his friends into slavery, and he provokes her into winding up to take a swing. However, Koga intervenes and stops her. Ophelia calls Koga a tail-wagging fool, but he warns her not to pick a fight unless she wants to taste his sword. At that moment, Leon shows up to smooth things over and Ladyboy instantly flips the conversation, making him apologize. Moreover, Ladyboy tells Leon to discipline Ophelia before jabbing back that even dogs can be trained. Prince Charming defends her and things get heated. However, Null baits Leon into the perfect villain versus hero rivalry moment before the Winged Knight party walks away. After they leave, Alma and Koga feel like he took it too far, but Noel tells them this is all part of his grand plan. They then lean in to hear the rest. After hearing it, his teammates can't believe it. But Wartface states that in the world of Seekers, it's eat or be eaten. Nevertheless, it is not the weaklings that get eaten but the cocky ones who show their backs, and the Winged Knights are just a stepping stone. At the Seekers Guild, Inspector Harold and his granddaughter Marion debate on who should command the forces for the future valiant fight. He asks her who she thinks, and she names Leo, claiming he is the GOAT. But the old geezer's recommendation is Noel. Marion can't help but laugh, knowing that her old man rejected his clan application. Her granddad makes a wager to see who will be the supreme commander between Leo and Noel. Harold wagers his position as the head of the Jenkins household if he loses, while Marion goes to a charm school if she loses. Without fail, his granddaughter accepts the bet. Later that night, Keem passes by a bunch of drunkards. He remembers when Leon was bullied and Keem came to his rescue. Keem wondered why he didn't take his bully out with his combat class, but Keem wasn't a fan of violence. At that moment, Keem made Leon vow that they both would become seekers. Fast forward to a few years later, they were in a tough battle against a beast with an abyssal depth rating of 7 named Ajatar. After some struggles, they defeated the beast, leveling up their rep, and earning the party nickname Winged Knights after Leon's angel wing skill. Presently, the tavern incident is still in Leon's head, and Keem straight up says that Prince Charming feels envious of Trash Kun. Leon acknowledges Noel's skills but says he can't agree with his methods. Cam states that they shouldn't kick back and allow Useless Kun to overtake them. He brings up the Seeker Guild letters urging them to form a clan. Leon is a little salty about the team making decisions without him, but Keem reminds him that he is the poster boy for their future clan. The next day, Keem and Leon arrive at the Inspection Guild for the clan interview, but get rejected. Same excuse as Femboy's rejection. Leon tries to use Ajatar as proof of their ability, but Harold says they lack hunger to climb higher. Then comes the twist. Harold doesn't remember sending the letters they all got, calling them a hoax. Leon begs for another chance and Harold agrees, but only if they pass a test, defeat the Depth 8 mind-reading beast Dantaleon. This beast is harder than Ajatar and Leon accepts without hesitation. Furthermore, the old man spices things up and says it is a competition against another rejected party that begged for a chance too. The winner gets clan status and Harold calls in the other party. As the door opens, it is none other than Noel. A few moments later, Harold explains the rules for the contest. The winner has to defeat the Dantalion. The name alone sounded like a knockoff Pokemon, but Zesty Boy states that it is basically a mind-reading murder chimp with a third eye. Also, it gives Ohio tier torture sessions if you lose against it. Harold thanks Noel for his elaborate explanation, and explains that they are to compete against such a beast. Whoever bags the Dantalion first gets the win. Trash Kun then asks if they are allowed to delete the other party first, before going ahead for the Dantalion. However, the Winged Knights party didn't support that, and the inspector reminds him that they aren't playing Fortnite. Furthermore, the old geezer tells them that he will monitor them using his skill during the test, so no one can cheat. At that moment, Noel, already serving based energy, pushes for another rule. He tells Harold that one of the Winged Knight elves almost went full WWE on him last week. Leon apologizes for what happened, but the glorified mouthpiece isn't having it. He makes a request saying that all members have to be present and in good condition on exam day. The inspector's like, bet. But Noel's already cooking something behind those eyes. Moreover, Harold states that this test is a special case which will not happen again. Also, he announces that whichever party loses will disband, and this catches the Winged Knights party off guard. After signing the contract for the test, Leon decides to flex on Useless Kun, telling him that they are trash compared to them and aren't holding back during the test. Just then, Noel shakes his hands, but tells Mr. Goody Goody he recently ranked up, gaining the ability to see the future. Spoiler alert, Leon comes crying after losing to him. The day of the test, Winged Knight and Blue Beyond are present on the field. The inspector is glad no one fell into a hole and starts the test. However, Blue Beyond immediately sits down to have a picnic, and Leon tries to make sense of what they are doing when they are meant to be competing. Noel tells him that he isn't in a hurry, and advises Prince Charming to go on ahead, since they have more experience. Leon is about to crash out, but Keem comes by and tells him to ignore them. After calming down, Leon tells the useless protagonist that he expects more from Noel before heading to the abyss. 5 minutes later, Ophelia intercepts the first wave of monsters, and Leon tells them to prepare for battle. Before the fight, Vaclav tells them that Ladyboy had met up with him the other day. He states that Trash Kun asks him to betray the Winged Knight. Apparently, he told 3 of the Winged Knights the same thing, promising freedom like he is Eren Jaeger. They can't believe Noel uses such underhanded methods and are glad they didn't betray the party. At that moment, Lady Knight alerts them that the monsters have arrived, and Leon uses a holy shield to protect them. At the same time, Harold remembers his agreement with Ladyboy. The old geezer wasn't impressed with the forged letters. However, Noel began to act cocky, and the old man asked if he could win, and he replied that it was a walk in the park. On the field, Koga worries that the Winged Knights can defeat the Dantalion while they are slacking off. Yet Femboy tells them that it is part of his big brain move. He admits that they are stronger, which is why they need to be patient. Zesty Boy explains to his crew that Leon's a gifted fighter with fast MP regeneration, angel wing skill, and he's a total goody two-shoes. Koga wonders what is wrong with winning the right way, but Noel shrugs it off, confident they will bag the W. The crafty bastard's plan is already in motion and can't wait for the Winged Knights to fall apart when Leon betrays them. Flashback to a period before the test, Noel confronts Kim, telling him to betray the Winged Knight. However, Kim couldn't help but laugh at the clown. Noel offered freedom if he fulfilled his request, letting him know that he could never keep up to Leon's talent. Kim rejected his offer, but before he left, Trash Kun informed him that Leon would betray him first. Back to present, the Winged Knights are going sweat mode against the Dantalion. An hour in and they have cleared its minions but can't touch the boss because it can read their thoughts like leaked DMs. Suddenly the Dantalion throws a barrage of rocks at them, which leads to Ophelia getting injured. Left with no option, Leon tells them to retreat while he holds the monster off. Mr. Goody Goody manages to escape, but the team is cooked. Ophelia's injury is healed but she is unable to use her bow. Suddenly Kame comes up with a plan that he baits the Dantalion, while Leon uses his ultimate skill. Leon isn't in support of his plan because he is afraid his attack will send his teammates to their grave. Kim reminds them about how they defeated the Ajatar and made a name for themselves. Just then, Prince Charming informs Kim that the Dantalion can read their minds, so it will know he is a decoy. At that moment, Leon suggests joining forces with the Ops to defeat the Dantalion, which might allow them to avoid disbandment. Hearing this makes his teammates think Leon has betrayed them. Kim can't believe he trusts Noel more than him and breaks down in tears. With that, Kim stabs Prince Charming, but intentionally misses his vitals. Kame confesses to Leon that he has always been jealous of his talent, but he's willing to risk his life for him. Now Kame only wants freedom. Soon after, the Dantalion spots the Winged Knight, and it is clear they are cooked. Suddenly, Noel shows up right on cue. He introduces himself to the Dantalion and uses his battle voice. Immediately, Koga appears from midair about to slash the Dantalion, but it escapes. Following that, Koga uses Calm and Serene to attack, which is proving difficult for the Dantalion to evade. The loyal dog and his master fight with their minds blank while linked with each other. An opening appears and Noel shoots the Dantalion, causing critical damage. The Dantalion can't keep up with his fast thinking and Noel orders Koga to attack. The Dantalion tries to escape, but Noel's cracked IQ breaks the Dantalion's mind eye. Left with no option, the Dantalion takes out its third eye and dashes forward. The battle reaches its climax, and Noel orders Alma to finish off the monster. Right then, Alma uses her Excella duodecouple to blitz through the battle. As she approaches the Dantalion, the monster reacts, but she flexes her new Phantom skill, which makes her invisible before taking out the monster. At that moment, Koga is hyped up after receiving a rank up to B rank, glad he will no longer be seen as trash. Just then, Kame asks Noel if this has been his plan, and he admits that he laid down the groundwork. Ladyboy had arranged with the guild to set up the test. Kame is furious, but he tells Kame that they are responsible for the results. Trash Kun points out that they are strong but lopsided, as the Winged Knights revolve around Leon. He informs them that their party was already doomed, and he only had to give them a push. In that moment, Noel is reminded that even the tightest bonds can break because of a single crack. Wartface makes it clear that Leon betrayed his teammates by not trusting them when it mattered most. The instructor declares blue beyond the winners, and immediately disbands the Winged Knights. Later, word gets around about the Winged Knight disbandment and Blue Beyond's achievements. At the same time, Ophelia decides to leave town and tells Lycia to cherish her friends. Soon after, Vaclav joins the Red Lotus party. Later that day, Noel shows Hugo the news, and he can't believe the Winged Knights had disbanded. The prisoner asks what he offered them, and Useless Kun replies that he offered them freedom. Meanwhile, Kame's drowning his guilt in the bottom of a bottle, confessing to some bartender NPC that he is a traitor. But the bartender cuts him off and tells Kame that he has to set Leon free since he is stuck in his own mind prison. However, Leon's barely processed the loss when Edgar rolls up and decides to jump him. Edgar begins to violate him, but Blue Beyond claps back and basically tells him to hold this L. Edgar tries to act like a top G but ends up losing his nose, alongside all his remaining aura points. After saving Leon, Wartface offers him the Vice Master seat in his new clan. Leon's initial reaction is that he would rather eat glass. Still, Noel keeps cooking and enlightening Mr. Goody Two-Shoes that his party was doomed from the start. because his talent was just too great in comparison to his team. Noel tells Leon to throw his sentiment in the trash and make the Winged Knight's name live forever by rolling with him. Eventually Leon caves in. At the Inspector Guild, Marion sees our useless protagonist as a twisted psychopath for taking out his rival and snatching their leader. Yet Harold is all over Noel's nuts and still supports him. The old man tells her that he plans to test him in their next mission against the beast with an abyssal depth rating of 9. Garmer. A while later, the Opid on the sidelines call Leon a sellout, but Noel doesn't care. Suddenly Kame tries to jump Trashcun, but Leon one-shots him. After that encounter, Kame wishes Leon good luck. Later that evening, they arrive at their new clan house. A haunted house that Zesty Boy bought for dirt cheap, which is also a well-known execution site with many ghost tenants. However, Noel tells them not to worry and whips out an exorcism skill book like it's no big deal. He gives them a winged snake necklace that symbolizes their contrasting traits. He vows to climb to the top with their new name, Wild Tempest. At the battlefield, Wild Tempest fights against Garmer. The beast can summon countless zombies. The glorified Yap Master orders Alma and Koga to cover Leon, so he can use Seraphim Blade. Leon hesitates because the skill will nuke the area, but Femboy tells him to do it anyway. They all attack in unison, and eventually take out the zombies. Meanwhile, Harold is standing on top of a hill, and watches them like it's some cable television sitcom. Later they are exhausted, and Garmer approaches them. For a second it looks like they are cooked, and Trashcun tries to talk no jutsu his way out. Turns out he is baiting the beast into a poison trap, using Alma's blood poison in a mist. The poison paralyzes beasts in under 3 minutes, and Noel's been marinating the battlefield with it. The Garmer tries to summon skeleton minions, but it is futile. Useless Kun tells the beast not to underestimate a talker before blowing its head off. Just then, he clocks the victory time like a speedrun mod. Later, he meets with the old geezer, who informs him that his reputation will increase exponentially after this feat. However, Noel's interest is the regalia, and he tells the old geezer he will reach there in 6 months. Wild Tempest begins to bicker over bath and food priorities, and the old man watching them mutters about how Noel's giving off Overdeath's aura. The Yap Master General already knows the only way a talker can become the GOAT is to run the world's greatest clan and let the aura speak for itself. Thanks for sticking around to the end of this drawn-out Yap session. Comment talk no jutsu to mess with those who just don't have what it takes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the screen to watch one of our other exciting videos. Until next time, stay awesome, stay Annie Geek.